the release of 2003's Saint Anger, Metallica has returned to heavy metal glory louder, harder, and stronger. After putting themselves through 2 intense years of therapy, they've finally been able to put 2 decades of dysfunction behind them.
It was a very enlightening time for us when we started going to group therapy. It's just in the last couple of years that we're finding out why we did the things we did, why we were so angry and so pissed off, why we didn't have a lot of trust in a lot of people or even each other, you know?
Now, after diving headfirst into childhood issues and therapy and all of that, seeing that, man, that was a lot of stuff just screaming to get out. All these emotions just out of control.
Confronting and purging the demons of distrust and addiction was a long, agonizing process. A process that began more than a decade ago with the recording of their seminal metal masterpiece, the Black Album.
The Black Album was probably the first exercise in things coming from within.
It was like opening our eyes, opening the doors. That was a very eye-opening album for us.
For the first time, the band stopped raging at the world and looked inward to start grappling with emotions of grief, fear, and regret.
It was a lot more difficult, though, to turn the eyes inside and to start addressing issues. But, you know, that was a big step for us.
It was singing about the things that we really didn't know how to deal with. Demons that were plaguing us, you know, at the time.
I'm your dream, make you real. I'm your eyes when you are still. I'm your pain when you can't feel. Sad patrol.
The Black Album, there's so much crying out for help by James in every way. And it took him 10 years to finally get the help that he needed. All the hate, all the loneliness, all the isolation, it's all there.
Being able to get them on paper when I couldn't necessarily sit here and tell you what I'm feeling, I can write it down. It's safer. Going back and rereading those lyrics, they make complete sense. They were the subconscious trying to get through.
Nothing else matters.
Metallica was a band forged out of alienation. 4 social outcasts who came together to vent as much aggression on the world as possible.
We will put as much time and blood and sweat and all that into it as it takes. And it doesn't matter who it destroys.
After solidifying their lineup in 1983, James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, Kirk Hammett, and Cliff Burton earned a reputation for playing down and dirty, loud and fast. Metallica provided a defiant contrast to the 80s spandex bands that ruled the West Coast music scene.
At the time, most bands were like poodle-doo hair bands, Rat, Poison-type bands, and Metallica stood out.
In LA, they were kind of a little bit of a black sheep because they were really, really heavy. So people were kind of like, what is this band?
The band's first 3 releases were increasingly aggressive metal manifestos. 1983's Kill 'Em All, 1984's Ride the Lightning, and 1986's Master of Puppets won the massive hardcore respect, but only a modicum of commercial success.
We just had such an abrasive sound, and A lot of times, critics would put on our album, and after the first 2 songs, go, "This is garbage."
There was no radio, there was no MTV for a band like us. We just went out and started touring our asses off.
We went out there and brought it to the fans. Force-fed, say, at the beginning.
Just as Metallica was building momentum, tragedy struck. On the night of September 27th, 1986, a tour bus crash claimed the life of bassist Cliff Burton.
And just the horrors of all that. You know, just freaking out and then medicating with booze after that, never really getting to grieve Cliff's loss. And took a lot of it out on ourselves.
Metallica steamrolled through their grief. They hired Jason Newsted as their new bass player, and within weeks they were back on the road, burying their remorse in their music and the bottle.
There was never any time for anybody to sit back and go, what are we doing? What have we done? What's happening? Where are we going? All that stuff. It was just make the machine go.
Okay, let's grieve through our music and our process of just jamming, get all the anger out or frustration out that way. Sounded like a good theory then, but really it wasn't. We stuffed lots of feelings and emotions that we had that weren't dealt with. I think that was really one of the major parts of us beginning to hide things from each other emotionally.
The only way we dealt with anything back in the day was to just run to the bar, start drinking. We really didn't hold ourselves accountable for anything we did, you know? But a lot of that also was just fueled by our own personal demons.
Metallica's next album, And Justice for All, was an exercise in nihilism. With epic-length songs that were more like musical diatribes.
Darkness imprisoning me, all that I see, absolute horror.
It painted a bleak canvas of a society on the brink of ruin and pushed the limits of speed metal.
It became mental gymnastics. It became these mental exercises. And, you know, the only objective of playing this 10-minute song is not it up.
Justice for All is 8 or 9 minutes long with a lot of riffs. I remember playing that song live, and at the end, like, the people were like, oh, thinking, when's it gonna end?
The songs couldn't get longer, they couldn't get faster, they couldn't get more anal and self-absorbed, and it couldn't be that anymore for our survival.
In the summer of '90, Metallica started piecing together the songs that would become the Black Album. They knew it was time to grow or wither.
Sounds real good, Lars.
We wanted to go shorter and more, with more muscle. You know, let's cleanse the song of all unnecessary parts. I think one of the first riffs we dealt with was Enter Sandman.
The original riff of Enter Sandman actually went like this. It went.
He played like a front and a back, a front and a back, a front and a back, and I suggested playing 3 fronts and 1 back.
It actually turned out sounding like this.
So you could build it up. You know, the Sandman build-up is huge. Finally getting into where everyone's together. Yeah, go!
Enter Sandman was a stripped-down, catchy rock song with a monstrous hook.
Say your prayers and so on. Don't forget my son to include everyone.
But it was also the first indication of James Hetfield's new lyrical direction.
Sleep with one eye open.
was looking inward, probing his own childhood fears to evoke emotions that were universally relatable.
I think lyrically, the Black Album had to go somewhere else. And you can't really go wrong with raw human emotion, talking about fears, childhood issues, all of those things that everyone has. Everyone shares certain brokenness in their life. It's universal.
It was the beginning of a kind of another chapter, the turning over of a new page.
In 1991, the Black Album burned Metallica into the collective consciousness once and for all.
It's a sonic masterpiece for that kind of music, and it branched out to all kinds of different people that weren't turned on to Metallica before.
Metallica's audience started to diversify. You saw moms, dads, kids, girls, grandmas, I mean, everything.
The Black Album is the perfect culmination of all their power and angst and inwardness.
In the decade leading up to the Black Album, Metallica had unleashed 4 albums of live fast, die hard heavy metal. But their increasingly complex assault of machine gun riffs and merciless drum attacks had only served to keep the world at bay.
We couldn't take it any further. I mean, there just wasn't any more room to grow in that musical direction. Most of the stuff was too cerebral, it was too forced.
We're playing a 2-hour set, and the set list is 10 songs or something. It kind of tells you something.
Simplicity was Metallica's new mantra, and to achieve it, they felt they had to look outside of their inner sanctum, however begrudgingly.
When Bob came into the picture, it was the first time an outside party came in to our camp with a lot of different ideas and opinions.
The band enlisted the services of an unlikely ally, producer Bob Rock, best known for his work with Bon Jovi and Motley Crue.
It's a perfect setup. We always had an out. If you like it, we did it. If you don't like it, Bob Rock our record up.
When Rock flew in for the first jam sessions in the fall of '90, the band greeted him like a foreign invader.
He came and sat down while we were playing, just jamming. And first of all, that was uncomfortable for us. You know, no one's allowed in the room while we're creating or jamming or whatever. So he's in there sitting, taking notes. Like, what's he writing? What could he be writing? He would, after the song, say, wow, you know, it's in the nicest way possible. Have you guys ever tried that a little slower?
Who the does he think he is?
Coming in and telling us what to do and play.
They were the most intense people I've ever worked with. As a producer, as an engineer, or really the most intense people I've ever met.
Now that you've, warmed up, let's hear the Guitar Player of the Year solo.
The attitude was, who is this guy? We don't know this guy. He's from Canada.
They did things the Metallica way. Any newcomer they suspected the worst from them. They thought I was trying to trick them all the time.
To say, you get out of here would have been so easy, but it wouldn't have expanded our minds the way it has.
Metallica and Bob Rock checked into Los Angeles' one-on-one studios in October of '90, initiating a battle of wills.
The start of the Black Album was really, for the first months, was feeling each other out. Just like I was wondering, what made these guys tick, because they were so protected. So they just didn't let people in.
The sessions would stretch for 10 grueling months, plagued by creative differences and stubborn infighting.
You want to hear it with vocals? Go sing it. No, my throat is really up right now. Okay, buddy, pal. I wouldn't ask you to do a drum roll if your arm fell off.
I would say that Lars and I felt that it was a race between the two of us a lot of times. This total power play.
Did they make you bend over, man?
James and Lars are best friends and direct opposite also at the same times. That's where the friction would come in.
Sick and f***ing tired of arguing.
I was definitely stuck in the middle. I was being pulled this way by James, this way by Lars. I was the whipping boy on both sides.
Bob used to be a woman.
Nice hair color. I mean, we were so caught in our own ways of doing things. And if you said, you know, this T-shirt is red, I'd say, no, it's not. Just on principle, just to disagree with you. Everything that's been put down the last 4 days, you can erase it. I'm here. Let the real start.
Whoever fights the longest, or whoever's got the hardest nose at the end of the day, that's who's going to be loudest on the record. There it is.
And Bob Rock's perfectionistic streak was an aggravating factor.
Hot metal. We're gonna take like 25 minutes here and change the snare head and do another set.
He recorded tracks over and over again, pushing the band members to stretch their abilities.
Okay, Jay.
There were fireworks all the way along, trying to push them to a place they'd never gone before, and not accepting insecurity and laziness or anything else as an excuse.
What do you suggest? Suggest that he leaves and comes back?
It's like he's got to put some time into this one.
It was a lot of work, especially with the intensity that we went at getting the drum tracks.
Keep the dynamics kind of cool on the hi-hat, though. You know, the big backbeat, that Lars Ulrich kind of snap on the old snare. Huh?
It was all, you know, like, I'd nail it, and then he'd go like, well, do it again.
You were missing cymbal crashes.
Do it with a little more stride, or do it with a little more attitude. Do you feel like I'm all over the place? Because I don't. I can usually tell when I start.
I'm not saying that you're all over the place. I'm just saying the overall feel isn't as good as what it was.
He really took that to another level with James's vocals.
Let me go from the top. Let's do this first verse.
Bob wanted him to try and put emotion into it and sing things differently.
One more time. Again.
Say your prayers, little one. Don't forget my son.
Say your prayers, little one.
Just try it like that.
Say your
prayers, little one. Don't forget my son.
We're having fun here, okay? This is fun, James.
It was difficult at the beginning for us to open up to that. We were afraid to get taken somewhere. What if we can't do what he's asking us to do? What if we get there and like it? And what does that mean to us? And then really at the end of the day, saying, we'll try it. And that was a turning point for us.
There was something within us that was growing up a little bit, like as far as seeing the parts that had to be played in order for this thing to become this whole new monster.
Bob was taking everybody to a different place, even though we were kicking and screaming. We were going to a different place.
Coming up next, the Black Album commits heavy metal blasphemy.
Nothing else matters.
Why can't Metallica have strings or horns?
We all wrinkled up our noses and made faces when we first heard the strings.
Oh my God, what have they done?
When Ultimate Albums continues. Equipped with 12 new songs, Metallica entered the studio in October of '90 to record their self-titled fifth record, which would become known as the Black Album. From the start, tensions between the band's two creative leaders ran high.
James was here, Lars was there. They were at most times at the opposite ends of the spectrum.
There was a lot of button pushing, for sure, and that was a way of keeping each other in check.
No, I mean, me and James would just go at it ourselves.
The snare thing makes it kind of bugs me.
Yeah, peace, you know,
When the next section
shoot
comes
it
in,
down.
it's not as loud.
Idea.
It was like, what does James want? Well, I don't want that if he wants that. There was a lot of that going on. One-upmanship. Just trying to with each other constantly.
What is your problem?
And having a mediator didn't help.
Well, let's straighten out this heart now that all the big brains are here.
Producer Bob Rock pushed the band to explore the range of their songwriting and playing skills. sending them into uncharted musical territory.
Lay back that backbeat. Wait for it.
Too fast. You're rushing. Pull back. Listen to the bass drum. No. Come on, man. You can do better than I heard you do it.
Cut to the chase and play, okay?
All right, man.
Kind of sounds like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, doesn't it, right there?
It was almost a confrontational thing. Every day in the studio with Bob, there's just a lot of sarcasm and bittersweet comments and backhanded comments flying around.
Need to breathe.
It's better when you don't breathe.
It's got a little more anxiety to it.
But for some reason, it fueled the album.
Pretty good, but it just needs a little more soul or character, a little more Hetfield in there.
Up till that point, a recording environment had never been a place of creativity. A recording environment had been more of a place of execution. All of a sudden, the recording studio became a place of growth.
So I dug the Unforgiven.
Just got to get the Unforgiven again.
In that environment, they were able to start digging into emotions, revealing parts of themselves they'd kept hidden.
So I dug the Unforgiven. Whoa.
Now that I like. He does get that Hetfield God sound.
I started to feel a little more confidence as a singer, and it was Bob's spearheading all of that that helped me with that inner confidence.
Okay, let's rock. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. We're here, so let's rock.
The song Sad But True was a clear-cut sign that James and the band were moving into very dark and very personal territory. It was a grinding dirge about the power of addiction, something Metallica knew all too well.
The shocking thing about Sad But True is how much we all felt we can relate to it. I know that I drank way too much because I wanted just to get away from the war that was going on in my head. James had a lot of personal battles in his head as well.
Sometimes evil takes over, addictions or whatever, you know, some of the parts that are destructive to you.
You're my mask, you're my cover, my shelter.
I'm your mask, I'm your shelter, like I'm everything for you. Pay homage to me, you know, pay me back by doing these deeds.
Do my work, do my dirty work, scapegoat.
It was the addictive side of me, wanting to run my life.
I'm your dream, make you real. I'm your eyes when you must steal.
Almost possession that demands things from you.
Sad but true.
Sad but true, meaning that, you know, at the end of the day, this is part of you and something that you have to deal with.
You know it's sad but true.
You can see a lot of his insecurity and his hurt and his pain and his catharsis in those lyrics.
I'm your dream, I'm your eyes, I'm your pain, I'm your pain. You know it's sad but true.
James Hetfield stepped up the emotional intimacy with a love song that would become the album's most unconventional track. Nothing Else Matters was so unlike anything Metallica had ever done, he never imagined the band would consider recording it.
He was very kind of playing it down. God, it's not Metallica stuff, but you know, just listen to it anyway.
It was intended for me and my girlfriend at the time. It's like connecting as humans, connecting as a couple, and or no matter what happens to us, our souls are together somehow.
All these words I don't just say, and nothing else matters.
We heard it on a demo tape, and it was magical. You know, we felt something that we never felt in Metallica before.
The band and management heard that thing and said, whoa, more of that, dude, from the heart.
Open mind for a different view.
It's not about fast or slow, loud, heavy, soft, whatever. Either it's a good song or it's not a good song. And this was very strong.
After James laid down the vocals, producer Bob Rock came up with a seemingly bizarre suggestion to record the song with a 40-piece orchestra. Utter blasphemy for a hardcore metal band like Metallica.
Why can't Metallica have strings or horns? I said, listen, this song just cries out for it. It would add the mood, it would add a dimension, and they went for it.
And I remember the day we put the 2-inch tape on, and he's turning up these faders one at a time, and we're going, oh my God, what have they done?
We all crinkled up our noses and made faces when we first heard the strings and the pads and all that. What the, whoa, 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 whoa.
It didn't make any sense to us. It was so new. But once it laid there, it felt so amazing and huge, and just, it was a new place for us to go.
2 or 3 listens later, and you start getting the bumps, and you're going, holy this is going to be huge.
Yeah, trust us, and I find in you every day for us something new. My mind for a different will, and nothing else matters.
The soul-stirring harmony of Nothing Else Matters was a shocking departure for Metallica, one that would open them up to millions of new fans.
It was a very popular lighter song as well. People broke out the Bics for that one. The guys would put their arms around their girlfriends and start swaying. We never really saw much of that before that song.
People are singing that thing so loud, and man, it makes my heart just swell. We found out that no matter what we try and do, we're still Metallica, which was very comforting to us.
Forever trusting who we are. No, nothing else matters.
But not everyone would embrace the melodic beauty of the Black Album. It had taken 10 months and over $1 million to create. But in the fall of '91, Metallica was ready to release the album that would redefine the heavy metal genre. A dark, melodically driven masterpiece known as the Black Album.
We've always wanted world domination, and the Black Album was the most pointed projectile we could shoot at the world, to just get our music out there and just spread it everywhere,
Reaching out for something you got to feel. While clutching to what you thought was real.
The Black Album was, that raw, heavy aggression that they had without all the extra stuff. They polished it and honed it and sharpened it.
Struggle with it. You feel your own confidence. Struggling with it.
People could relate to the lyrics, people could feel the music. And you knew that there was a lot of integrity and time and energy put into it. You know when a band's telling the truth.
In an attempt to place the focus solely on the music, the band designed the simplest album cover possible for the self-titled record.
We wanted people just like, look at the cover and then get straight to the music.
And this is the cover. What does it say? It says, "Here, listen to me. You can't see me. Listen to me."
With that in mind, the band launched the album in an unprecedented manner.
Thank you for coming out to the biggest listening party in the world. Thanks for coming out.
On August 3rd, 1991, they held a free listening party for 14,000 fans at New York's Madison Square Garden.
Our album played Madison Square Garden before we did.
That's one of those risks that could either be so awesome or completely fail, Come sit in a stadium and listen to a record.
Fucking appreciate this, man. Yeah!
9 days later, record stores nationwide opened their doors at 1 minute after midnight, and fans lined up in droves.
Metallica!
The Black Album entered the charts at #1 and went double platinum in less than 2 weeks.
Boom. This thing just blew up like mad. All of a sudden, Metallica's #1 every freaking country across the world.
Metallica's the best! They're my favorite band! They rule! Yeah, Metallica!
For a band like us, that was unheard of. And the media was coming to us, for once, rather than us chasing them down,
Well, welcome to hell, and sluts!
With the release of the record and the acceptance into the mainstream, Metallica was a household name, something they had never been before. I don't know if they'd imagined that they would ever be.
Barbara Bush, Metallica, together for the first time.
But Metallica's crossover into the rock radio mainstream incited a snarling backlash.
No, Metallica should really get heavier on the next album.
Many of Metallica's hardcore fans accused the group of betraying their roots and selling out.
Go back to the basics, stay with the one groove.
Keep it simple, stupid, you know what I'm saying?
Metallica was definitely the people's band up to that point. And then once it broke through and it became this gigantic mainstream thing, and their teachers were listening to it, their parents were listening to it, their younger sisters were listening to it.
And it wasn't their Metallica anymore. It was everybody's. And then they get pissed.
When that first came out, I think that, the initial backlash was, what is this from, this band that we've loved for, so long.
The fiercest attacks were reserved for the song Nothing Else Matters, the first ballad Metallica had ever recorded.
A lot of our hardcore fans just said, that song.
We want something really hard,
People saying, what have you done? You've changed. Metallica is growing and moving forward as humans got to do. And if we lose fans because of that, that's their fault,
You're not going to please everybody all the time, and that's not the way you can go about your career.
We can't worry about them. We can't carry those people. We've got to keep moving.
In October of '91, Metallica launched a massive and grueling world tour to scorch the Black Album into as many eardrums as humanly possible. They wouldn't see home for 2.5 years.
Being elbow to elbow, planes, trains, automobiles, day after day, week after week, month after month, every freaking where that they would allow westernized rock and roll music we went to.
They would get a call from their management and it was like, there's some kids in Indonesia who could really do with checking you guys out.
The 19th single just went back into the top 5. Let's book another 5 shows in German. It's just stop, enough.
It became our way of life. We were living out of suitcases, and even when we get home for that little break, why unpack your stuff? You're going right back out again. And the song Wherever I May Roam is completely fitting for that tour.
Wherever I May Roam was Metallica's lament on the nomadic lifestyle and the price it exacted on their personal lives and their sanity.
Every time we played it, it's just, it had an instant connection with it because the road became our bride on that tour.
Relationships were severed because of that. Families suffered. People that got married on the Justice album got divorced on the Black album. It was mentally torturous at times. It took its toll everywhere.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah, in retrospect, it seems completely outrageous. But at that time, it was all we knew.
Next, the emotional legacy of the Black Album.
At the end of the day, therapy is communication and trying to get that through. And so that was a gift that I was blessed with that if I didn't have, who knows where I'd be.
Metallica's Black Album is a hard rock milestone that sold 15 million copies and turned heavy metal into a marketable mainstream commodity.
The Black Album changed the way the industry viewed the genre. So many bands you hear today have absolutely been inspired by Metallica, so many.
Metallica in general created a lot more leeway as to how heavy a band that's going to be played on the radio can be.
They paved the way for harder bands to come through and have some kind of mainstream success.
Korn and Limp Bizkit and all those other bands could go from there. They could be on big record labels and be as heavy as they wanted.
On the Black Album, Metallica made a choice to simplify their songwriting and stress pure emotional honesty. By looking inward, they had opened the door to a massive new audience.
Black Album lyrics talk about emotion, and they talk about something everybody can apply something to one way or another. The songs, the subject matter for the first time was able to touch all people, because everybody has emotions.
This was where James gave up the reining in of what he wanted to say. The impact of the album overall, why it continues to have such impact, is because they're the feelings that so many people relate to.
There are many kids around the world who have felt like the person who wrote those lyrics did. You recognize that this man was really starting to get a lot of himself out, and it was a painful process.
Never free, never me. So I got the unforgiven.
I wasn't trying to make them as deep and personal as I could. I'm just writing about what I feel. And at the end of the day, therapy is communication. And so that was a gift that I was blessed with that if I didn't have, who knows where I'd be.
The Black Album gave Metallica the courage to take emotional and musical risks. Its success emboldened their ability to accept change. And that legacy remains with them to this day.
They survived the 90s because they were willing to expand and learn. And I think they're a better band now because of that. And I think even the new album, St. Anger, is all spawned out of the learning process that they've been going through.
If I could have my wasted days back, but I use them to get back on track.
With the new album, we decided to collaborate while we were all in the same room, which is something we've never done. The concept was just to start jamming, and we reached a creative peak that we didn't even think was possible.
Keep searching, keep on searching.
St. Anger was possible 15 years later because of having gone in all these different directions.
On and on.
Whether you like what we've done, whether you don't like it, all this stuff and all the different directions, I can always look you in the eye and tell you that it's always been from within.
My lifestyle determines my death style. My lifestyle determines my death style.
We've got to keep moving. We got to move on and see what new doors we can bust down if they're there. Otherwise, just be alive and well and happy to be in Metallica.